Hey, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another episode of Coaster Kings Radio. And today we're looking back at IAAPA, which we just spent the last 2 days at IAAPA. 2023. Damn, time flies. Last year there was a couple years ago, 2019. And this time we were there as guests of BoldMove Nation, a new up-and-coming dark ride company that Sven works for. So that was exciting. And we'll talk a little bit about all things BoldMove Nation and some of our favorite booths that we visited today, or the last couple days rather, including some dark rides, some roller coaster manufacturers, theme park builders, water slides, all the above. Surprisingly large amount of Chinese companies that we swung by.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll talk about.
So the first place we're going to go on our tour of the IAAPA show floor, I would say the biggest focus for IAAPA these days is the revealing of the trains and usually the lead car of a ride vehicle or a ride of a train, a roller coaster train. Sometimes these reveals come with a whole ride reveal too. They're revealing an entire attraction by also revealing the train. But most of these were attractions that were already announced that we now get to see the custom rolling stock design for. And there was a lot. There was a lot of interesting. This is one of the most interesting years for themed rolling stock on coasters. There's a lot of stuff that we've never seen before, and even some themed elements on ride vehicles from manufacturers that we don't normally see that kind of thing from, like B&M, for example. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll start with Gravity Group and their Bobcat train reveal. This is a standard Gravity Group Timberliner train, and the Bobcat is the custom family wooden coaster coming to the Great Escape next year that will be replacing the Alpine bobsled coaster, which was just recently demolished. And what do you think of the lead car for the Bobcat?
Lead car is very busy. I'm excited for the park, and I'm excited for Bobcat because I think, first of all, this park is going to get a whole lot of new coasters from the ground up.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a good size, very similar in size to Timber and Walibi Rhône-Alpes. And so I think it's going to be a really nice fit for the park. However, God, that train is doing the most, and it just kind of looks messy. I just don't think it's a very nice-looking train car. I'm excited for them. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited for the ride itself. But, I don't know. Maybe it's because the way that that it's painted, there's a lot of black outlining on it. It looks a little papier-mâché-ish. I'm just not the biggest fan of the coloring of it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Of the front of the car.
We got to see that reveal in person just because we just happened to be there in that particular corner. We didn't go to a majority of the actual reveals because honestly, they're really chaotic.
Oh my God.
And it's there seems to be a
million GoPros,
a million
and cell phones
bloggers all competing for the same shot. It was much easier to take in the design elements of these trains, hours or even days after the reveals. So, in fact, I would say day one at IAAPA was just totally chaotic. The overall vibe was just very, maybe not tense, but just there was a busy and a hurriedness because there were so many train reveals. They were all on the first day that it was everybody was just running around trying to keep up, and there was so much. There was admittedly a lot to see. There's a lot of great stuff being announced for 2024, but it was just kind of an intense vibe as a result. But yeah, Bobcat was one that we saw in person, and it's not exactly our favorite, but maybe a good place to start on this list because it can only get better from here. And again, like Sean said, it's a great ride objectively. It's going to be amazing for this park. And it's going to be the perfect attraction for the Great Escape. We're just really nitpicking about the train because
I guess I just don't think it looks that good for train front.
Yeah,
especially not comparing to some of the other work that they've done for train fronts. I don't know if the Bobcat really tried doing a little bit too much almost. Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of looks to me it looks like a cake. It looks like maybe I just watch a lot of Food Network, but I feel like they were doing like one of those cake competitions where they have like 6 hours to like create a theme and flesh out an entire cake that like tells a story.
Oh, like Cupcake Wars.
Yeah, but this is like that's just it. It just doesn't look like a really refined artistic thing. I mean, like looking back at other trains that Gravity Group has done, like Coastosaurus was a beautiful Triceratops train, switchback with its locomotive vehicle train. They've done some really cool stuff. Leviathan in Australia. It was just not quite up to their... I don't even know what this coaster is. Gravity Group has done a lot of different themed noses for their trains, and mostly they're almost always a hit. But this one being a miss, it's like, oh well, no big deal.
Next up for our booth, Noble Rides. I just want to mention it real quick because it was a giant booth. It wasn't ever really that busy there, but Noble Rides, I guess, is Jinma's European subsidiary.
Yeah, it's kind of the foil for Jinma / Golden Horse rides to launch into Western markets. And Jinma had their own booth too. They also had a separate Jinma labeled booth that was elsewhere on the show floor. Like there seemed to be a deliberate move to separate the two entities, but like the ride vehicle that Noble had on display,
it's like the dive coaster vehicle.
Yes.
So not dive coaster, the tilt coaster vehicle. So
like, and the LSM coasters that Jinma Ride has been developing. It's a great looking train. It's very straightforward. Like there's nothing. It's not particularly remarkable. The most interesting part of it is this Oasis at Lakeport project that is allegedly happening. That's like somewhere in Missouri.
Oh, I didn't even hear about that project.
Oasis
at Lakeport.
Yeah. Supposedly, Noble Rides is already working on They already have a client in the form of this amusement park concept in Osage Beach, Missouri. And that's why the roller coaster vehicle that they had on display was actually advertising this resort. So, it's really just like a decal on the train, but it's something. This is a more concrete evidence of this particular theme park project happening than like a lot of alleged theme park projects.
I'm actually kind of excited
that are supposedly going to happen.
I don't hate Jinma rides by any means. I've kind of enjoyed some of the rides they've ridden in Asia. And, there's also Western manufacturers such as Umbrella where I really question who was in charge of signing off on those Thunderbolt coasters. So, interesting, yeah.
I feel like the biggest criticism people have of Chinese manufacturers is that they rip off of Western manufacturers, but I would say that a majority of manufacturers are guilty of the same. It's kind of the nature of the beast with the industry. When somebody develops something that's really good, it's kind of inevitable that other companies are going to do their version of it and operate, all the way up to the limits of a copyright, because it's their right to do that. And when it comes to things like track beds and train designs and stuff, I think in the past there's just been issues with like Jinma not actually respecting copyright. Wasn't there one year they got chased out of IAAPA because of their...
Allegedly.
Yeah, they were allegedly run out of IAAPA due to their copyright infringement of the coma. But what I'm seeing from them and all the other Chinese manufacturers by that accord is that there's a lot of... maybe not... Original might be giving them a little too much credit, but they're definitely doing their own design. Like this train for this coaster that Noble had on display, it could pass for a Mack Rides train or an Intamin train, but it's clearly not that. Like, clear to us anyway. It's obvious that they're kind of doing their own thing that's based on this type of ride, but there's nothing wrong with just basing your design on an existing design. That's pretty much how the industry has been going for a long time. So it would be really interesting to see them launch a project in the States and give, Americans an easy, accessible way to make their own judgments about a Chinese designed, Chinese built roller coaster without having to travel overseas.
That would have found interesting. I don't remember seeing a. Oh, kidding! I did see the Mauer booth. Never mind. So let's talk about Mauer.
Yeah, Mauer was at the front. Their thing right now is
it's definitely the spike coaster.
They're going all in on the spike coaster, and they've got like the wing spike coaster trains now,
where you sit on each side of it,
and that looks interesting.
Like the 2x2.
Yeah. But nothing too earth shattering from them.
I think Mauer really
year.
is super focused on their
spike models
coaster.
Are cute. I really like.
That's all they really do now.
That water attraction concept that they just recently dropped. They had the most adorable little model of it, like in a little acrylic box, like you could put it under your arm and carry it around. And then another adjacent to this company with not really a whole lot of changes in their booth, but always still nice to see, is Gerstlauer.
Yeah, same thing. Gerstlauer, same models as usual. It's nice to have the Mystic model from
Wallaby Ronalp.
Because that's a
beautiful layout.
Cool Infinity coaster. Yeah.
And then, of course, they have the model of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Shellraiser, and Shredder intertwined coaster layout, which, it's a real shame that those rides run the way that they do, that they're so rough and vibrating, because I think under better circumstances, first of all, I would love to see Fuji-Q Highland build the spinner around their Takabisha. Second of all, I would like to just see another clone of the two of them, and built in conditions that are maybe more ideal than the conditions of the American Dream Mall, because for whatever reason, all the coasters there are totally jacked up.
I always wondered if Fuji-Q would ever go and just build the spinner in there.
I mean, I guess that ship has sailed. They don't seem to. Sure. I think if they had. I'm sure that Gerstlauer has pitched it to them. But Fuji-Q seems like the kind of place where, if someone has already done that exact same thing, they're probably not as interested in it. They would want, a bigger, taller, faster, longer version of an intertwined spinner ride around Takabisha, but then maybe they're probably... I could see them also saying, well, Takabisha is fine the way that it is. It has its own vibe. Intertwine these two roller coaster designs together for the sake of necessity, but Fuji-Q is not. They're not the biggest park in the world, but they're not strapped for space either, to the same degree that Nickelodeon Universe is. So
next, let's talk about Rocky Mountain Constructor. Their booth was kind of small. Yeah. I was kind of expecting a little more from the booth, but
we were looking for it. We realized we never saw it because it was right under our noses. It was right next to the.
I know. We were where is it? And it was right there.
Yeah, it was a little modest booth, but
the nice thing is it has the new Silver Dollar City Fire and the whole train on display, which is a beautiful train.
Really nice.
It's a 6-seater, 3-bencher train. It's kind of cool that Rocky Mountain Construction is doing that project because it's such a classic replacement. That was exciting. Then they've got their single tracks on display.
Oh yeah, their rail tracks.
Their rails. That was pretty nice. And then there was a little model of, was it Wild Moose?
Oh, yeah, the Wild Moose.
Yeah.
The train.
New little model that they have for, like a Wild Mouse-ish kitty family coaster.
It's not a bad niche. Their marketing is that, they want to sell that to people who already have a Wild Mouse, like a standard Mauer or Mack Wild Mouse, that are, ready to part with it and replace it with something else. Kind of like what Busch Gardens Tampa did this year for their next new coaster, but we'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, I loved the new train for the new RMC project. I don't know why I was so pleasantly surprised when I saw that it was just a basic lap bar and not a lap bar with shin guards on their aggressive coasters. I was for some reason expecting the train to be for the lap bars to be over-engineered, because that just seems like something RMC would do. But it's a very simple, unobtrusive lap bar. They stuck very close to the design of the original vehicles, which is wonderful.
And then B&M was not too far away, which they had 2 trains on display this time, which is nice. They had a car from their dive machine products, in this case, Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger from Six Flags Texas on display, which is nice. But then obviously the big show reveal was the Penguin Track trains, which are very stylish, very clean. They have these really big, pronounced springs in the front, which I'm not sure if they're just thematic.
I thought about it, and it's because it looks just like a snowmobile. It's supposed to. It's got skis on the side that are attached to the springs. So yeah, even though I think it's not only meant to be thematic, but it's designed to convey the movement, the articulation that the seats will have on the vehicles, because it's supposedly kind of like a sit-down version of Pipeline. And I think
is it really?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Oh,
the seats don't spring up and down. That's what I had heard. Maybe that's not accurate information, but for me, the springs being a pronounced decorative feature on the snowmobile themed fronts of the cars tells me that they're leaning into that quality of the ride and using the styling of the train to help tell the story and highlight that trait of the ride.
I'm actually really excited for Penguin Track because I think we did a whole episode in 2024 roller coasters already for North America, but I think the whole concept of taking a dark ride and then building the roller coaster through it and then having, that's all kind of really neat. And then having a B&M family coaster like that's just rare. It's unique. It's new. It's
we're
cool.
in a really interesting era for B&M because they don't really they had a reputation for innovation in the 90s, and that reputation kind of died away in the 2000s, and now it seems like we're back to. It's obviously not as bombastic as it was when B&M was out here inventing the inverted looping coaster. That was an industry earthquake that was it's difficult to compare Batman the Ride to other things that had happened in the timeline up to that point and since. But it's neat seeing B&M do different things. Pipeline is a really fascinating, interesting, marketable, fun, different ride. And on the one hand, it's that seemed from a Thuzy perspective, it's cool that it's unique, but also for any person going to SeaWorld Orlando, and you already have 3 roller coasters from this company, it's important that if you're going to build your 4th and your 5th coaster from the same company, that what you're getting from this brand is a different experience each time, something that's actually diversifying your collection. So
it is nice how incredibly different the 5 B&Ms are at SeaWorld Orlando when they're all open.
Yeah, considering how much overlap there is between a lot of B&M rides in the same product line, it's nice that when you have a park that has so many B&Ms, you still get such a nice smattering of options. And now SeaWorld Orlando is about to have the most diverse collection of B&Ms. Technically, they don't have the largest. They will share that record with Great Adventure, but they will have, I'm guessing, the most interesting and the most varied lineup. Great Adventure still has 5 B&Ms, right?
We was talking about this, because it's Nitro, Batman,
Green Lantern, Medusa, and Superman. Okay, yeah. And that's a pretty diverse collection, too. I think for some people, there's a lot of overlap with, Green Lantern and Medusa. But
that's kind of what I was thinking. It's just these big loopers.
Yeah, big loopers. It's for the average guest, Nitro being the tall airtime thing, Superman being the flying coaster, and Batman being the inverted coaster are really what highlights those qualities. There's a much bigger gap between, well, maybe gap's not the right word, but there's a lot more unique qualities between Kraken and Pipeline than there are between Medusa and Green Lantern.
Pretty much,
yeah. And the new coaster will continue to elevate the collection there, the B&M collection there. It will, I think, have the probably objectively the best B&M collection at that point. Although I'm sure people at Great Adventure are still very partial to their 5 classics. All of those B&Ms are from the same era, which is really fun. They represent a very precise 10-year chunk of ride design, beginning with Batman and ending with Superman. So I love that for them.
Next
But anyway.
up, Philadelphia Toboggan Company.
Oh, yes.
Who is doing the new trains for Comet at Hershey Park, which will still be 6-seater, 3-bench trains, 4 cars per train, 2 trains. But now it'll have ratcheting lap bars for each seat versus having the handlebars, as I think they called it. Or the handrails.
Janine, our dear friend Janine, calls them handlebars. I'd never heard that before, but I guess that's probably that must be the technical term. Everyone just says buzz bars, but handlebars is
I think it's
probably
handrails.
more accurate, or handrails.
Yeah, handrails. I think is what
that's
they call
a more accurate description.
Trains look awesome. It's gonna have a bunch of cool. Like a nice star motif on the side with glittery kind of effects, and every car will be a different shade of paint. So, you can only install the train in one matter. Like, the cars need to be lined up exactly a certain way. And lots of gold touches, which I think is really fun.
The gold touch is great.
Instead of silver for,
it's very unique.
For the edges of the train, which is nice.
Yeah, for, the floor, the steel floor, riveted floor, that's almost... you just get so used to seeing that sort of thing in a steel color, like an untreated steel color, that when you see it in gold, it's like, wow, it really pops.
Yeah, it's different. It's nice.
I think the train looks gorgeous. And Tom and Janine were, so excited. I loved hearing them talk about all the details. Like you said, with the color and, there was not one component of that train that wasn't carefully and lovingly considered and thought about. And this is one of the only examples of a 3-bench PTC car with individual ratcheting lap bars, and I am actually really excited for this. Apparently, she said, and we've ridden Thunderhawk too, and I guess I just forgot. Maybe that's just not something I was paying attention to at the time, but she said Thunderhawk is also a 3-bench train with individual.
Yeah, Dorney Park, yeah.
But I'm just not a fan of Thunderhawk. But I really like the Comet, and I'm excited to ride what Janine calls the yeet seat, which is that third row, the last seat in a 3-bench car and the first car of the train, which is something that people love on rides like the Phoenix, for example. But with the individual ratchet lap bars, I think I'll enjoy it even more because of my body proportions. I prefer a ratcheting lap bar. I get more air that way. The handlebars are really cool. Handrails? Is that
I think they call them handrails, yeah.
The handrails are a classic and cool option, and I loved those on rides like the Great American Scream Machine and stuff. But she actually, the night before, she and I were talking about how I think for coasters that used to have a buzz bar and then switched to an individual ratcheting lap bar, I think a lot of purists, have feelings about, challenging tradition. But first of all, PTC is just fulfilling an order. They're giving the client what they wanted. Hershey asked for this. PTC gave it to them. If anybody has any issue with this, their issue is with Hershey Park, not with PTC. Second of all, I find...
Isn't that deep though? Come on.
No. Well, for some of these people, it really is. These are thuzies. Think about it. I mean, it really... it really is that deep for some people. But more importantly, I think some rides, like when the Great American Scream Machine got Georgia Cyclones trains with individually ratcheting lap bars, I thought that ride experience improved as a result of that. I just liked not having the folding lap bar. Your mileage may vary. There's some people who think that the ride experience is better, or they just, for nostalgia purposes, prefer that experience. But I think for me and for you and a lot of people we know, their Comet ride experience will improve as a result of these new trains. And
then moving on to a different company.
Yeah, totally.
Something that is not roller coaster. Sally, which is known for the dark rides. They had a Mr. Krabs kind of like Mr. Potato Head kind of figure up there at their booth. But I think what caught my attention the most at the Sally booth was the roller coaster dark ride that they were showing off, which was a partnership with Intamin. Mm-hmm. And pretty much Intamin would provide the roller coaster and the drop track and the launch and all the cool stuff, spinning vehicles, whatever you want to ask for. But then Sally was going to do the dark ride elements. And they showcased a lot of really cool things that I thought were really neat.
Very smart.
Like a roller coaster where you say you're on top of a building with walls all around you, and then the ceiling kind of encloses on you, and then that's also happens to be a drop track, which you can do so much with that once that building is enclosed, and all the effects that they were showing. I thought that was really neat. I think that was my biggest takeaway from Sally this time. And then we went to GCI, which has their really cool model on display they've had for a couple years now, which is the kind of like racing Titan track-esque, also a regular track. Roller
and they've got inversions, right? Don't they have like a double?
Yeah, they have inversions.
It's like a super steroid lighting racer type model, which
like really cool. And so that model was there, and then they had the trains for the Six Flags Qiddiya Colossus wooden roller coaster, which are the new
Infinity Flyers.
Infinity Flyers, that's what they're called.
We tried those in 2019, and Sean's feet, his shins, like couldn't hardly fit. Like
they looked a little roomier this time, but we didn't actually sit in.
They definitely did a redesign, a total redesign from what we rode in what we sat in 2019, and I hadn't even noticed until I went back and looked at the old pictures. But it does look a lot different. But hopefully, the legroom situation is something that was actually addressed.
Yeah, because the legroom is honestly great on the on all the Millennium Flyers. So we'll have to see if the new Infinity Flyers from Great Coast International are any better. But we'll have to get a coaster closer by because I don't know when I'm going to be Six Flags Qiddiya.
There was a lot of Saudi Arabia was like the continuing overarching theme. Everything from Intamin to SNS to GCI to Whitewater West. It was the Saudi Arabia show, and I'm pleased to say that a lot of other people in attendance that we spoke to shared similar sentiments about the
human rights conditions.
Elephant in the room about what women and queer people are feeling complex emotions-wise when manufacturers are announcing these projects, because this is in a part of the world that a lot of people, a lot of cultures and subcultures are not safe in. So it was a little exhausting at times. I'm happy for these companies to get things built. What's good for Intamin and SNS is good for enthusiasts, I think. And it's not these theme parks. It's not all these theme parks and things being built in Saudi Arabia. It's not the people working on these projects. It's not their fault that Saudi Arabia is the country that it is. But it's just kind of a little, I don't know. It's hard to articulate. I don't want to seem like a bad sport about it or anything, but I think it's a sentiment shared by a lot of queer people, by women, by pretty much anybody who isn't a heterosexual male. But then even as a Christian people should have feelings about what it would be like to go to a place like this. There's a lot of reasons for a lot of people to feel, to feel feelings about all of this.
Anyway, next we'll move on to one of the few roller coasters on the show floor. In fact, the only roller coaster on the show floor. Did you go ride? Yeah, it was the only one this time, right? Mm-hmm. The SPF Visa one?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the only one that you could ride, which you did. It was the usual 2-helix SPF Visa spinner. It was fun. It was cute. We got the credit. It was nice. They also, of course, had a little little drop ride on display.
Yeah. And
they had one more ride on display. What was it again?
Oh yeah, the tumbling. It's like called Tumbling Twister or something.
Yeah, it's pretty much like those.
Knoebels has one called Tumbling Timbers.
Yeah, it's like the SPF Visa spinner cars, but then there's like 4 or 5 of them on like a kind of like a flat dark ride surface, and then they. Almost like an old Calypso, like an old Schwarzkopf dark ride. They kind of just tilt and move. Good stuff, cute. SPS Visa still works together with Fun Rides for You, which I think does most of the installations for their stuff. So they were also the ones operating the attractions on the show floor.
I hope in the future we see a giant, like a bigger SPF Visa setup again. The 2019 setup was unbelievable. It was their whole like micro park concept that was
really neat,
wrapped around with the large SPF spinner, looper, hamster wheel coaster combo. Like it was awesome. And then Rides for You had a separate little coaster next door. And that was also the year Zamperella had the Nebula's flat ride on display, which has become an icon, like an instant icon.
Oh, I love the Nebula's ride.
That ride.
That was missed.
The ripple effect of that ride is felt far and wide. And it was cool riding it in IAAPA first and being like, gosh, like we loved it. And I remember thinking like, gosh, I hope this is successful because this is a fun ride. And now there's like dozens of them already. So.
And then we are switching gears to Endamiro, which is
This is a video game,
like an arcade game company.
Yeah, they do arcade cabinets, and Sean and I had a blast playing their current generation of the coin pusher ticket redemption game. It's themed to Spider-Man. A lot of coin pusher games in the current landscape use charms or cards, things that you'll push over the edge on a bed of coins. The cards are either collected or given to the prize counter in exchange for prizes, or in the case of like Ticket Circus, which is a similar game, the charms get pushed over the edge and they translate to ticket values, and then they're recycled and brought back to the top, and so on and so forth. But this one used giant like
silicone
acrylic balls,
yeah,
and they were really cool.
They were super neat, and the game was very interactive. There was lots of different things. There was a main spinning game, so every time you had a big ball drop over the edge, you would have like this Wheel of Fortune, where then the ball would go into one of the holes, and that was then your prize. So there was usually like a rapid fire or more tickets or something like that. And then there was also like the Insanity game that would come by, and it's this giant game coming from the ceiling that would then swing over to your side, and it's like another spinning game. So there was a lot of games within games, kind of giving you rewards for every time your coin pusher would push like a coin over the edge, or like a little silicone ball or a big silicone ball, and then they all translated to being different rewards. It was one of my favorite coin pusher games, if not my favorite ever. I really like the Star Trek ones that they have at the Dave & Buster's.
Yeah,
but this was a really, really neat, fun for quite a bit, and it was very interactive. It was fun. Yeah, definitely would like to see it somewhere.
We did. I loved walking around the arcade cabinet part of IAAPA. Our friends Dave and Jody Medore, they run arcade games and like prize claws and stuff. A variety of clients, and that's where they hang out. That's their focus. They're in IAAPA as clients, as buyers, and they're exploring all of the different games and things like pinball. Dave's a big pinball guy, so like he's like always checking out what's new on the pinball horizon. I love pinball, but it stresses me out. I think I'd rather watch people play. But coin pushers, I'm all about it.
And then switching to a completely different gear, we did some of the food stuff that they had on like the food vending side of IAAPA, which it's a lot of fast food and food that you can sell at your FEC, at your amusement park, at your water park, whatever. And so we had honestly nothing that remarkable. However,
there was Sbarro, which we ate because we were hungry, and it's like, wow, even being hungry doesn't help this product.
Wow, babe. And then, we had some mini donuts, which are cute, but then I think the real highlights was this company called Mini Melts, which they share pretty much the same market as Dippin' Dots, similar logo, similar product, except less dotty. Like, it's not as circular the dots are. Like, they're just more like all sorts of shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
that their
I would
ice
say
cream
it's more
comes in.
accurate, because I think Dippin' Dots are guilty of that as well, where like a lot of the ice cream pieces are not dots, but like funky partial clusters.
But it was good.
Shapes.
I had the cookies and cream one, and it was very good.
I had the brownie.
In fact, I preferred it over Dippin' Dots.
I was appreciative of their sample size being so large. Like, they really did not skimp on the samples. They were there to make a really strong impression.
Yeah, they were popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We met up with a bunch of friends, of course, all throughout IAAPA. So if we forget your name, then...
Our dear friend Josh,
met up with Josh, who was big friends and big fan of Mini Melts. So that was nice.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about some water parks or water slide products. We'll start with Pauline. It was actually the very first booth we went to when we got to IAAPA this year. Was Pauline Water Parks Water Group. They do a lot of stuff. They do aquariums. They do a lot. But Pauline is always the one that has the most spectacular looking concepts. I will say that, because they are just when we were there 4 years ago and we thought, this Time Rider concept that they announced then looks so cool and so crazy, but now that looks like nothing compared to their current biggest the biggest product,
Stingray,
which now is the Stingray. That was the biggest highlight for me. There was a big model for it there. It's really just 4 slides, and then it's 2 sets of 2 racing at one another, and then 2 of the slides become the center of the Stingray, go all the way through, and then via the wings of the Stingray on the edges and the points, they kind of zigzag their way back, and then you have the 2 other slides that enter the Stingray kind of off to the side, and then become these giant bowls that then in return disappear underneath the Stingray, and then also dump out underneath the tower. It's kind of hard to describe, but if you look it up, the Pauline Stingray, it's a fascinatingly awesome concept. It was nice seeing that model and kind of admiring that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Pauline is known for the biggest, probably what people know them for in America is going to be like Sugar's Great Adventures old Cobra water slide, where you would go into the Cobra's face, and then come back out of it as part of your boomerango kind of moment. Which was nice. Another big project that they're working on is their Zip and Slide. Is that what it's called, Zip and Slide?
The Zip and Slide.
I think it's called Zip and Slide, which is like a
suspended
roller coaster water
slide.
slide raft ride. It's a lot, literally. I don't know how far that will go. It looked really cool conceptually, but it just seemed like it seemed more of a pie in the sky concept. Yeah. But the nice thing about Stingray is, despite it looking like this over the top crazy idea, it looks like they've already got one contracted to open the spring in France, so that's cool. I mean, that's one of the coolest looking water slides in the world.
Getting something as massive and beautiful as that built and rideable is super exciting.
It's half the work,
yeah. So we will be there. That's suddenly I'm like, I'd plan a trip around riding that in France. Like, we go to France all the time. That'd be easy.
And then we stopped by Whitewater, which of course, is also responsible for the log ride going to Sigras Cadea, which is cool. I mean, it's just a log ride, and they just kind of revealed like the look of the log, which is nice.
I'm just glad that Whitewater is is still so prolific in providing log flumes. Again, it's one of those things where we're not going to Saudi Arabia. We can't, and we're not going to ride this log flume, but ultimately, we're just glad that Whitewater West is still finding log flume clients, because the next log flume client might be somewhere that's safe for us to go. So,
and then we chatted a little bit with the designer of the
slide wheel.
The slide wheel, and we discussed the big tower in Qatar, the big water slide tower, which is really fascinating because I didn't realize that the way the water slide tower is built is that a lot of the slides that are higher up and kind of middle of the tower, because the tower is about as tall as a Statue of Liberty. It's that crazy tall. So some of the water slides obviously don't go all the way down to ground level. So some that don't, they kind of go to the middle. And then from the middle, you can take other water slides back down all the way to the ground. So
some of the ones that go down to ground level were unbelievable.
I know, because you have ones that go all the way from the top, like the dropout slide. They go all the way down. It's crazy. That body slide is massively long and scary. But yeah, that's a really cool whitewater project. I think in general it's the coolest water slide project ever. So that was really neat. And then I don't know to what extent we could talk about this, because what they showed us was like a model that they're still patenting. And that was literally only in the meeting room that's behind closed doors. But somehow they were really interested in pulling us in there and making us look at it, which is cool. So there's something that they're working on that I'm going to just really vaguely describe as a kind of like a morphing of a standard tube that makes it look like it has an inversion, while really it's just really clever working with the slide walls as to where the raft can slide and where the raft can slide, by using different dimensions, sideways and a vertical, to kind of change the shape of the tube, while it really doesn't do much for the tube's actual positioning inside the slide. It looks really, really spectacular, and I'm sure if you do something inside of that tube, it's cool. That's about as vague and as detailed I can be about it.
It's sort of like the evolution of the slide wheel of tricking the eye. The slide wheel is terrifying looking. It makes it look like you're doing these ridiculous acrobatics in a water slide, when really the slide rotates around you and your vehicle eddies in the valleys that are created by the slide as you progress through. And that has been a hugely successful and just iconic product for Whitewater West. So this product, this two, it reminded me a little bit of like a DNA double helix, like the shape of it, but like traveling down it, and as it rotated around you, you would slide from one end of the track to the, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's for the best that we can't describe this because it's probably embargoed, but it's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
I want to say that it was cool, and it was really cool of them to show this to us.
And so, obviously, we can't forget Pro Slide when we're talking about water slides.
Yes.
Pro Slide highlights are really, in my opinion, the sheer amount of models that they have out on display in the booths. I mean, it's first of all, they've opened a lot of really cool products in recent years, and of course, the big focus is on their water coasters now. You have the one that's water propelled, and you've got your electromagnetic propelled ones. Both are being sold kind of depending on what the park wants as their products.
Mm-hmm.
One uses a lot more water, but it's cheaper, and one, uses a lot less water, but electromagnetic is more expensive. It was really cool, especially because they had Siam Park in Tenerife, their new racing disc toboggan launch water slide situation. It's so spectacular. Our friends at Theme Park Explorer wrote it, and they swear by it. It looks so good. So that was nice to see that model on display, and they've got a bunch of other cool models. So I really enjoy looking at that. I don't think Pro Slide really had anything that was revolutionary new that was standing out to me, unlike maybe Pauline and our friends at Whitewater. But it was still, I think that if you're looking at just like consistency in a product, Pro Slide just has that. They can build entire water parks.
Yeah.
Volcano Bay is 100% Pro Slide. It's stuff like that where it's just consistent. It's nice, and I think they have a really, they have a sort of professionalism to them. When you show up, you know exactly a Pro Slide product is a Pro Slide product. I feel like I can tell if it's a Pro Slide 10 miles away. You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of the nice thing about Pro Slide, and they showcase that during IAAPA too.
They don't really innovate just for the sake of
innovating. Yeah,
they kind of let necessity breed their innovation, and they have so many clients, and they do such a great job, I think, of moving the envelope along smoothly. Their products are reliable, and they open on time, and they don't require a lot of tweaking or adjusting. So not to interrupt, but I want to go back to Whitewater real quick. They do have this new, another new concept that they are selling, and that's using almost like constrictor walls, kind of taller, wider walls to kind of create a zigzagging motion in a water slide. It's hard to describe as well, but it looked really, really good. That you know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
the new products? Yeah, it was. I forgot the name of it.
Their concept was
so
beautiful with the waterfall and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just such an exciting landscape. I love the water park.
The water park landscape is the stuff that we tend to spend a lot of time in.
The Whitewater West Pro Slide pull-in battle is a really fun one to watch. And it's one of those competitions where the clients, the consumer wins.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
And then we want to talk a little bit more about coasters, of course. So we'll talk about Vekoma for a bit.
Yes.
So Vekoma had on display their tilt coaster model,
Pro
which
Slide.
is fine. But I think obviously the biggest thing that Vekoma revealed this time around is their Good Gravy roller coaster trains for their junior boomerang. Looks awesome, especially the front and back card are on display.
So
the little
wonderful.
Gravy boat.
It's so kitschy and just a commitment. You come up with an idea and you run with it and you launch it into the stratosphere. This is a fun, different, just bizarre, odd, but I love that. I love when you can get beaten into submission with all of the superhero coasters and the same kind of vibes and themes and tropical water parks and industrial scary themed roller coasters. And here comes Holiday World with a roller coaster themed to gravy, the gravy train, if you will. A whole Thanksgiving roller coaster with a spread and everything that your roller coaster navigates around.
And I think Vekoma being at IAAPA is just victory laps for them because they're so busy and so sold out. So there really wasn't much that we talked about or discussed there because Vekoma was busy, but also
I would have loved to have seen a model of just their current generation of their sit down looping coaster because they've got the Flash vertical velocity opening at Six Flags Great Adventure next year, which is probably the roller coaster stateside, if not globally, that I'm most excited about.
I want to see a model of Fly of Fantasia.
Oh my god,
that'd be so great. Next, we'll talk about some of our friends from China. We
Big clients of Vekoma, Fanta Wild Park.
Fanta Wild had a booth, which Fanta Wild is interesting because they kind of create formulas for theme parks and clone those, and then build certain attraction types that are all pretty much in-house manufactured. Dark rides, boat rides, it's
kind of
flying
like
theater. It's almost like a all-in-one. Like they are a company that operates theme parks, but they completely design them and they
it would
categorize
be like
them.
if
And
Disney, with like Walt Disney Imagineering or Universal Creative, also lent their expertise and design to third parties.
well, yeah, but I don't even know how much Fanta Wild is doing third-party wise or has been doing. But it's just really fascinating to me. It's almost like having Universal Creative as like its own booth and it's playing how they design the parks. And
Exactly.
yeah, so that was really neat. And I think one thing that we talked about with Fanta Wild is we talked about they have like a Flume cinematic dark ride that uses a lot of screens. And so it's a Flume ride that uses a lot of screens as well as physical effects. And it was just fascinating the way they showed that. And then they have a sort of circular dome theater that uses hydraulics to lift up, so you board in like one environment that's usually a physical set, and everyone faces the center, and then you lift up, and then you have, your second level is your whole dome, which you then are in the dome for the 3D part of the show. I thought that was really cool. They've got some really interesting concepts that are big for them, and of course, Fanta Wild is known for their space theme parks and for their Heritage Oriental theme parks, and then they all have very unique different rides.
They also developed a lot of the Sunac parks.
Did they?
Didn't they? Yeah. Well, like all the Sunac parks, a lot of them were Fanta Wild parks, and the ownership changed while a lot of them were in development.
That does ring a bell.
Like the Guangzhou Sunac was a Fanta Wild park. And remember how it was right next to the Fanta Wild shopping mall with the Fanta Wild water park and movie theater and stuff, but the amusement park, which had originally been part of Fanta Wild,
that's right. We used to be so versed on that. That's right.
It's because like Fanta Wild, I think, over speculated a little bit, and they had to sell off some of their debt. So the Sunac parks, I think a majority of the Sunac parks, including
Fanta Wild products,
are parks that Fanta Wild designed.
Well, then I wonder if Fanta Wild was in charge of one of our favorite dark rides ever, which
Final
is
Sea
the
Battle?
Final Sea Battle.
I'm almost
Because if they're in charge
certain
of that, I need somebody else to build a Fanta Wild ride.
Yeah.
But that was cool. And then, of course, we stopped by Jinma, which had their new, dive coaster on display.
Yeah, they got their dive coaster and their broken rail, which is their version of the tilt coaster.
Tilt coaster was on there. And then a company we didn't remember seeing prior, but that we've written some of their products was the Shibolai, which we did one of their suspended dark ride roller coasters, which were
at Guangzhou Sunac.
That was
a Fanta Wild design as well.
So that was cool, and we got some of their pamphlets and stuff. And then I guess we'll talk about some of the more big boys again.
Yeah,
we've got SNS, which revealed the Transformers Access Coaster, which is of course also going to Saudi Arabia, but this time not to Six Flags, but to some of the seven destinations. And seven stands for Saudi entertainment venues. I don't know what the EN stands for, but that's what it said. Either way, really venue. Cool. There you go.
Saudi entertainment venue.
Cool.
Yeah, 7.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Really cool design. A lot smaller than I expected. The train is gorgeous. Like,
the reveal
gorgeous access train.
Was so unfortunate because they couldn't get the media to play.
That's okay. We can skip past that. And then they launched,
and then they showed everyone the train, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, the train's so amazing!" And then when the media came out, people were surprised by how short and small the coaster was.
It really is cement. It is the first access ever we're going to see. It's like an indoor 2-3 story roller coaster. I mean, that's featured 2 inversions, and it goes around twice. 8 passengers per train.
Gonna be terrible.
But it's it's for an indoor sort of attraction. It's not for a major theme park.
Yeah.
I was expecting, unfortunately, I was expecting a large access coaster because ever since they launched the access product in 2019, they've had all these big models for it and all these big designs that they have animations for and stuff. So I was expecting something a little bigger. And I think access is one of the coolest coaster concepts. I really think, along with the Mecha Stream Spinner. Yeah. It's kind of, and then the 4D coaster, it's really kind of up there. Which SNS has already kind of I think SNS kind of controls the market of like having the more intense. They've got their
When I think of
air
SNS,
launch
I think of,
coasters.
like,
They've got
the
their 4D
most-
coasters. Their
the coasters,
free flies, free spins, access.
coasters that will
SNS.
push the limits of human endurance. I think of SNS.
So it's cool. Billig is hoping to see a big access coming somewhere.
Yeah.
That's really all on that. But yeah, Trains for Spectacular looks really cool, and
And then
it was a cool reveal.
Of course, I think the biggest reveal, the one that created the most chatter and buzz, was the Intamin Falcon's Fury reveal for
Falcon's Flight.
or
Yeah,
Falcon's Flight. Sorry, wrong Intamin. For Six Flags Qiddiya, and this even more so than the SNS project and like the GCI project. Just started a lot of conversations about this whole situation with the Middle East, but
well, the biggest conversation that Falcon's Flight is really all about is that, first of all, it's an incredibly bulky train. I mean, it makes sense because this is supposed to be like the fastest, longest, tallest roller coaster in the world, also in the middle of a desert. But the trains are cool. They're using giant acrylic windows to prevent people from having to use glasses in order to ride that ride. It sounds to me like it may catch a lot of wind, but they're curved in such a way. I mean, they all seem confident about it. I will say the train is gorgeous and probably the biggest train we've ever seen for like a two-seater side-by-side. Like, it
10
is
out of 10.
Massive
There's
car.
like a whole floor.
And I expect this whole train to be like that, like just like a massive train.
That train is like
very big,
the equivalent of sitting in an exit row on an airplane. The distance between the seat and the windshield in front of you, unbelievable.
And then speaking of big launch coasters, of course there was the Zamperla booth with the Top Thrill 2 train.
Beautiful.
Which I think looks awesome. I'm excited for Top Thrill 2. I mean, it looks pretty generic, the train. It wasn't anything special.
I think it's fairly. It practiced.
It's clean.
It definitely practiced some restraint. I think it's pretty sophisticated. There is still a lot of head scratching about Zamperla and them doing this project because it seems like quite a leap from what they've been entrusted with up to this point. And when it comes to like roller coasters that they've done, they can be pretty hit or miss. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out.
And then we have Chance Rides, which is home to the new Mattel theme park roller coasters. They're being done by Chance Rides, which includes a hybrid GTX looping coaster, and it includes a more traditional family coaster product.
Like a large,
but they're
big
both very,
product.
very, very big. And the train on display was for the Twin Mill Racers roller coaster, which is a Hot Wheels themed double loop, double corkscrew roller coaster that's going out to Arizona next year. I think it's supposed to open, or maybe the year after.
No, they're going to open in the spring.
It's
I think
such a gorgeous looking train.
Yeah, this
probably
train,
the best train on
we
display.
saved this train for last on the
Best
train
train
tour
at IAAPA.
because this was, I think, the winner. It was a perfect balance of commitment to a theme, sophistication, and execution.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was really, really great.
It's beautiful.
And I'm really excited for this park in general because both coasters that Chance Rides is doing look really good.
The trains are the insides of the trains. For anyone wondering, they look pretty much. It doesn't look like they've strayed much, if at all, from what they did for Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. So if you're familiar with those trains, they're pretty similar to the RMC trains. But it'll be, I think, a really nice experience, comfort-wise and seating-wise, for a launch coaster with multiple inversions. And just a very stylish package to boot.
And then, last but not least, we want to talk a little bit about BoldMove Nation, which, again, those were the guys that Sven works for, and we were invited out by this year. And BoldMove Nation has just an awesome collection of dark ride concepts, mostly on a smaller scale, which is great for regional parks. Their first award-winning ride, actually, is, how do you pronounce it? Champerfolie? Something like that. It's a La Paul in France, and it's using almost like a square building and in a circular motion between physical sets and screen sets. It's an interactive dark rider shooter. Really, really neat concepts. And they have a bunch of different kinds of concepts now, including one more Mardi Gras themed. There's a dinosaur themed one, aquarium themed one, all that kind of good stuff. And they obviously can build on larger sizes too. A really cool concept that they came out with is and there's already one under construction right now. I believe open soon, or it was already open for test opening. But it's almost like a virtual water slide where you sit in the actual water slide raft, and there is water slide motions because of the simulator. And then using VR, it's like you're riding a real water slide, which one was sold into a Gulf country because it doesn't mean you have to get wet, so you can ride it in like hijabs or whatever you want to ride it in. It's nice for people that don't want to do the whole big water slide thing.
That's true.
And they work with Triatech a lot, which Triatech was right next to them, their booth. Which they worked together with Triatech on their last
for their the ride for Lapal.
Yeah, they won a Brass Ring Award for the new dark ride.
So cute.
It's really
themed
cool.
to anthropomorphic mushrooms.
Yeah,
what's not to love?
And there's also a candy themed one where I think it's a little squirrel that gets high on candy, and it's a whole thing. So it's really exciting. It's nice to see new players in the market, and they've been around for a couple years now, but not too long. And really, really fascinating and high quality stuff, and we're excited to see where the next dark ride will come.
We hope that this was a successful venture for them at the IAAPA here in America.
The first time they were at IAAPA,
because we would love to see one of their products come to the States, especially
because of all America's focus on doing a lot more smaller projects. The Universal is opening smaller theme parks. Mattel is opening. I mean, there's a lot of theme parks opening in like Libertyland in the United States. Lots opening up that isn't very large and will be really would benefit from having a smaller type dark ride. And I think a really good starting off point is definitely BoldMove Nation. Mm-hmm. Lots of experience in the industry already, but then like in a new, fresh concept company, and I think that is it's worth a lot. And so we're really excited for what the future holds. We can't wait to get to Lapal. We missed the opening, unfortunately, due to work, but. We can't wait to get to Lapal and ride it soon. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we'll see some BoldMove Nation stuff closer to our home. Yeah, that'd be cool. And with that, we're almost at an hour, and we will leave you guys to the next episode. Make sure to leave us 5-star reviews, preferably. Leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you're listening. We really appreciate it. And, of course, follow us on our social media accounts. Facebook, Twitter, what's it, X?
I don't want to talk about it.
Instagram, Threads, all the good stuff. And we will see you on our next episode.
Bye.
Bye.